Welcome to Mobility from the Ground Up. I'm Laura, and in this class, this is the first one of this specific class. For 30 minutes, we're going to be using the grounds as a tool to work on our mobility and flexibility. So I'm really excited to bring these tools to you. The only thing you need is space on the floor. I've got a yoga mat here for a little bit of padding. And we'll be on our back, laying on our backs. So if you want something under your head, I have a yoga block here. If you're at home, you could use a small pillow or something to boost your head if that's more comfortable for you. But just have it on hand if you need it. Today, we're going to be looking at mobility and flexibility of the shoulder joint. So I know a lot of us sit a lot, and so we're going to try and get those shoulders a little bit more back without forcing them and really open up the front of the chest. So let's get started. On the grounds, no surprise there. We're gonna lay on our back. If you have something for under your head, you can put it there now. This is just if you're feeling really uncomfortable with your head flat on the ground. All right, so I have my knees bent, feet flat on the floor, and we're gonna just feel how our shoulders are moving today. So I'm using my right arm, I'm reaching up toward the ceiling and then down toward the floor in an arc. And then back to the start position, which is by my hip. You can go nice and slow here. See how it feels. Can you touch your hand to the floor? Is there any tightness? This is kind of our check-in to start here, and we'll do the same move at the end. And so we can kind of compare and contrast after all the work that we do. Let's go to the left arm. So starting down at the hand down by the hip on the floor, and then up and over in an arc. We use right and left differently, especially up in the arms and shoulders. So you might feel the right and left have different sensations. We're never going into a point where there's pain, never forcing anything. If you've have really tight shoulders or anything going on with them that could stop the motion and maybe you stop here, that's completely fine. No need to force anything. All right, let's do both arms now, right and left. Moving both arms at the same time requires a lot more stability in the shoulders, a lot more mobility, which is what this class is all about. So it might feel different than when we did just right or just left. Couple more here. Again, notice how things feel. And then bring the hands back to the start position. We're going to turn one more check-in move that we'll return to at the ends. And this is, I call a floor angel. So it's like you're making a snow angel with your arms, except you're on the floor. My palms are face up. I'm doing it two hands here because that's how we normally make a snow angel or a floor angel. But you can also do what we did with that first move, which is just do one arm at a time. See how they compare to each other. Notice if there's any tension, tightness, any popping. If there is, make note of it. If there's pain, try to avoid that motion that may cause pain. All right, now that we've done our two check-in moves, we're going to come up to our hand and knee position here. And we're going to start with some rocks. Now, as we go through this rock, if you watch my shoulder, you can see that I go from an overhead position to a more down by the side position. Not quite, because otherwise we'd fall down. Be face first on the mat. But again, we're We're building strength in that shoulder position. Working through a range of motion. I'm going to have you pause. So here in this position, my shoulders are above my wrists, my hips are above my knees, and I'm going to reach through my right arm and my right leg with my left arm. And if it feels comfortable, you can put your shoulder down on the floor, or you can use that pillow, yoga block, whatever it may be, and put it on to the yoga block instead. Then we're going to come out of it. We're going to go to the other side. I'm going to put my shoulder down on the yoga block. And hold here for a couple breaths. And come back up. If you feel like it's comfortable for you, no pain, then we can reach through, put the shoulder on the ground like I showed the first time. Using the ground to stretch out the back of the arm, the back of the shoulder, upper back. And then move out of that, go back to that second side. And switch sides one more time each side. If you find yourself, as we do any stretches or movements here, holding your breath, try to return back to your breath and make sure that your breathing's nice and even. Nothing's forced, not stopping breathing. If we're breath holding, that's a pretty good sign that we've gone to a point where our body is uncomfortable. And come up and out of it one more time on that second side, reaching through. And come out of that. We're now going to play with our shoulder rotation here. And what I mean by that, you can come up into an upright position, is I'm going to have you can kind of move your shoulders here. And notice here that my elbow pits are pointed in toward my body, and then I have my elbow pits pointed forward. So you can do this with your own arms. You can hold it out in front of you so it's easier to see. But when my elbow pits are pointing toward each other, that's internal rotation of the shoulder. When the elbow pits are pointed up, that's more externally rotated. So we're going to take this and put some weight into it. So you're going to put your hand in that all fours position again. So my wrists are under my shoulders. That's too much weight. You can take your shoulders behind the wrists a little bit. So find what's comfortable for you, but do that same motion. Now your hands are kind of like they're glued to the mat. My elbow pits move to point forward, and then they move to point toward each other. So I'm rotating my shoulder joint here with just a little bit of a load. So this is the front orientation, front view, if you will, and I'll show you from the side as well. Right now, my shoulder is stacked over my wrist, but if your wrists feel like it's too much or that it's too much work, just back your hips up a little bit, take some weight out of the upper body and off the hands. Nice. All right. We're gonna use this idea here and do a couple push-ups here. Nothing crazy, but we're going to do some push-ups with the elbows going out wide, where those elbow pits are pointing toward each other. I'm still on my knees. I'm not trying to make this a really hard push-up here. If you want the challenge, you can go into knee version of the push-up or into toes. Kind of choose your adventure here. A couple more. Notice how that feels for your shoulders. Is it easy, hard? And then take a little break. We're going to go into that reach through one more time. Give the hands a little bit of a break. Get a little bit of a stretch before we try a different variation of the push-up. Nice, easy breathing. And then switch sides. All right, come back to that all fours position here. And we're going to now do our push-up with the elbow pits pointed forward. So instead of the elbows going out wide, like this, and having the elbow pits point toward each other, the elbows are going to go straight back towards your feet. And now the elbow pits are pointed more forward. This is a more neutral shoulder position with the elbow pits pointed forward. Some people might call this a tricep push-up because it does work your triceps a little bit more because they're with the shoulders in this position, the triceps are in a great position to really help you push back up. How does this version of the push-up feel compared to the elbows wide version? Take a break if you need it. You can shake out. Those two different push-up versions, elbows wide and elbows straight back or next to the body, give your shoulder a very different experience. So we want to have as much variety in our movement as possible. All right, so we're going to do a different move here now. And we're going to do another strength move for the shoulder. So in this one here, you're going to start with your hands behind you and your feet out in front of you. And then from here, you're going to lift your hips up and set them back down. Now, right now, notice which direction your fingers are pointing. My fingers are pointed out away from my body. But this is a range of motion that we haven't gotten into yet, in that when our front is facing toward the floor. Now that our front is facing up, now we're getting the shoulder back behind us. So we're lifting and lowering, lifting and lowering. Now this time, you can watch first if you'd like, but I'm going to lift and then shift my weight forward. It's like my butt's just sliding right above my yoga mat here, and then I go back. And as I do this shift, so this is like a different version of a rock here, I'm moving my shoulder joint through another variety, range of motion here. Always feel free to take a break, set yourself down. That's not a position our shoulders get into a lot back here, unless you're walking very vigorously. So if you're ready, you can go back up. But this time, I'm going to have you turn your fingers to face forward and try and get your elbow pits forward as well. So in this version, I'll have my hands out a little bit wider. Try and get, instead of the elbows going out and lifting, we want just kind of squeeze the elbows. Fingers are facing forward, squeeze the elbows toward each other, and then lift the hips. And do that same rock if it's available to you. So you can see it from the side. Fingers are pointing forward, elbows squeeze toward each other. If this puts too much pressure on the shoulder, wrists, or elbows, then go back to the original hand position. Or you can set your hips down and just do the lifts again. We lift, we lower, we can lift and go forward and back. Nice. And let's go down again. We're gonna go to our knee hand position again. And we just did a rock with our front facing up toward the ceiling. Now we're gonna tuck the toes under it, lift the knees, and do a rock from here. So we're not just stretching here, but we're taking our shoulders through the range of motion while holding our body weight. And this is really important. We want to build strength in these new ranges of motion so that we maintain that range of motion after we're done. All right. Come on out of it. You can shake out. Let's do a quick stretch. So we've been in this position for the wrists for a little while. So let's just we're going to bring our elbow into our side and gently above the knuckles here, bring the palm in toward the forearm. It's not going to touch. It's just a gentle stretch here. And I always recommend stretching on a grid. So imagine we really want the shoulder, elbow, and wrist to be one right in front of the other as we do this stretch, not in like this across the body. So we have that elbow pit facing forward, which is a position it doesn't tend to be in most of our day. And you can sit however you want here. You don't have to kneel like this if that's uncomfortable. Let's switch to the second side. Gently putting my hand right on the back of the hand, not the fingers, but the back of the hands, and bringing it in. Just a little bit of a stretch to break up the work for the shoulders and the wrists. All right, let's come out of that. And we're gonna take some more time off the hands here, and we're going to do an elbow rock now. Until I love rocking, right? So I'm on my elbows, my palms are facing toward the ceiling as our start position here. And then you're going to rock the hips back toward the heels, keeping the hands down on the floor, and come forward. So we go back and forward. Nice and slow, no rushing here. Notice as we're doing this what your hands do. Now I asked you to keep your hands on the floor, but can you try and get before we rock back, can you try and, as best as you can, it probably won't happen, get your thumbs to touch the floor. This is probably work in and of itself, just trying to get the thumbs to touch the floor. So go to a point where it's not like a lot of work, not where you're shaking to do it. So the thumbs might come up on off the floor a little bit. And then try to maintain this hand position that you have and rock back. What'll happen a lot of times is that the thumbs want to come up toward the ceiling. And part of that is tension in the shoulders, part of it's tension in the forearm and hand as well. So we're kind of getting multiple birds with one stone here. Now, in our check-in, our movement check-ins at the beginning, we did single arm and then two arms. We're starting with two arms here. But what we're going to do, we're going to give our hand a little bit of help to stay on the ground because I'm sure that it's kind of pulling up off the ground. So we're going to take our left hand and put it on top of our right hand. So one on top of the other. And then you're going to do that same rock again. So how does it feel now that we have the weight of the left hand helping the right hand to stay down? So you might feel a stretch. Some people will feel a stretch in the hand or forearm. A lot of people feel stretch through the shoulder area and into the back or upper arm. There's no wrong place. It really just depends on where you're tight. You're probably going to feel that stretch first in your tightest part. All right, let's switch to the other side. So now I have, if you're working with me and you followed my left and right before, your left forearms on the ground, left hand facing up, and you put that right hand on top of the left hand. And we're gonna do that same rock back. Notice any differences between right and left. And go nice and slow. You don't want to rush, partly because our body is really good at compensating for tension, so we might just rush past the tight part and not know that it's there. And the other reason is that if we go too fast, we can get ourselves into positions that our body isn't really comfortable in. And then we'll just be carrying a lot of tension through this motion, which isn't what we want to do. Nice. All right. Let's come out of that. We've got one more move for strength, and then we'll do a little bit of a recap with some of these moves with a new, what I call an alignment point for you. So let's sit once again with our hands behind us and our feet flat on the floor, knees bent. So some people would call this a crab position, but you're just sitting on your butt, hands back behind you. I'm gonna have you push into the ground without lifting your butt. And then you're going to lift your right hand up, bring it over and thread your leg through. So this is what we're gonna do here. We're gonna, now that we have this position, we're gonna tap the butt down. So now I have my left hand on the ground, my right foot on the ground as my main base of support. I'm gonna reach. So this again, building strength through shoulder range of motion here. You can keep that right hand on the ground to help with balance. This is called a tripod. So we go from here, and you can always stop and take a break. Lift the hips, take the leg back behind you. You can take a break by putting the knee on the ground. I'm threading that left leg through right now. And if you're noticing here, if you can think about your shoulder mobility right now, we're going through a different range of motion building strength. Good. All right, let's switch sides. So I'll set that up a little bit differently this time. You're going to put your right hand on the one end if you have a yoga mat, one end of it, and then your left foot toward the other side. You've got enough space here to thread your leg through. You can put the left hand down as you reach forward with the right foot. Tap the right hip down, lift, really strong through the shoulder. Knee comes to the ground. Nice. Using the ground here as a tool and our body weight as a tool to build strength and mobility simultaneously. All right. Let's stop right there. And we're going to add one piece here. We're going to review a couple of the moves that we just did. And with this, we're going to add in this, what I call, again, an alignment point. So a lot of times when we're working on shoulder work, our shoulders will lift up. So this time, as we're going through, I'm going to say shoulders away from your ears or shoulders down. And you're going to let your shoulders relax away from your ears. So you can let the shoulders come up right now and then drop them down, relax. A lot of us carry tension up here, so it's really easy for those shoulders to pop up. So let's use this alignment point to build even more mobility and strength through the shoulder joint. So we're going to get into hand-knee position, shoulders away from the ears. We're going to do a couple rocks. Notice as you rock, do your shoulders lift toward your ears, or can you keep the shoulders down away from the ears? Little flow here. All right, put those shoulders right above your wrists, hips above your knees. We're going to do the elbow straight back push-up. As you're doing the push-up, can you remember to keep your shoulders away from your ears? For a lot of people, it's on the pushing up away from the floor that the shoulders want to come up, because that's where we feel strong, shoulders up at the ears. Just want to build strength with those shoulders away, down and away. One more. Good. All right. I'm going to have you bring one foot to the floor, to the opposite from what your hand is. So we're going to do those tripods again. Shoulders away from the ear, and then thread the left foot through. So I'm on my left hand, right foot threading that needle with my left leg. Can you keep your shoulder away from your ear as you do this tripod transition? All right, let's move to the other side. So now I'm going to put my left foot flat on the ground, right hand's on the ground. I'm going to thread my right leg through. Shoulder away from the ears. Think about engaging the muscles right back here. That's your lat. It really works on stabilizing the shoulder. Nice. All right, and just to get that final strength move in the range of motion, come back to that crab position. Both feet flat on the floor, knees bent, hands back behind you. I've got my fingertips pointed forward, elbows squeezed together. I'm going to lift and rock with my shoulders away from my ears. I hope at that point by this point you were expecting me to say that. Nice. All right. Let's go back to our check-in moves at the beginning and see how the shoulders are feeling here. So our first check-in move was reaching overhead in that arc from hip, reaching for the ceiling and then toward the floor. You don't have to touch the floor. Try it with one arm and then the other. Notice, does this feel smoother? Do you feel like you have more control? Are there less clicks? Is there less resistance to the motion? And then you could do both arms. Kind of go at your own pace with the check-in here with this. Hopefully you took some good mental notes at the beginning of our session. And then our other check-in was that, what I call the floor angel. You can do two arms. You can do one arm at a time. Again, noticing, comparing what you feel now with those mental notes you took at the beginning of our session. Hopefully, the shoulders feel smoother, feel like you have more flexibility, more range of motion. And because we built strength simultaneously while working on that mobility, hopefully that sticks with you throughout the rest of your day and into the next few days. Again, my name is Laura. This was Mobility from the Ground Up, and I hope to see you next time.